Hey everyone, welcome to another High Performance Health podcast with me, Andrew, and David. We've got a guest with us today, Brandon. Brandon is a guy that I've been working with over the past 6 months. Brandon, I believe it is.
Yes. Yep.
It's been a podcast that I've been sort of in touch with Andrew and Brandon about for a while now, and I'm super excited to have you on. I think you've got a great story. I've got a load of list of questions, to be honest with you, to run through. I know the things that you've gone through are quite close to David as well, and I know he's gone through some stuff. So we'll dive in, kind of sort of talking about overcoming adversity. So, like I say, I think your story is really interesting. I work with a lot of people, and there's always a lot of bitching and moaning and excuses as why people can't show up to their training. And I know, obviously, you've gone through some pretty traumatic stuff in terms of car accident, obviously in your past, and I would love to do a little bit more of a deep dive into that today. So, talk to me about kind of the car accident that happened in what 2013, I believe.
It's 2011, and it was
2011.
actually on April Fool's Day. It was a
Was it
Friday.
really?
Yeah, it was on a Friday. I was just woke up, was getting ready for work, normal day, on my way to, I used to do excavating back then, and about not even a half a mile down the road from my house was a stop sign. And I kind of Hollywood stopped it like I did every single day of my life. Grew up on a farm, used to drive through that thing since I was 12 years old. I've been through that stop sign, I mean, thousands of times, and just always took it for granted. Nobody would ever be there. And on that day, there was a guy, and he was probably speeding a little bit, but I know I didn't stop. So he hit me in my passenger door. He hit me so hard, he put the door against my leg and then pushed me
Yeah.
down the road, and we went through a telephone pole. And I suffered a C2, they call it a C2 hangman's. If people are familiar, I'm from the United States. If you guys are familiar with Superman, it was essentially the same exact break that Christopher Reeve suffered. So it was a
Wow.
pretty violent impact. I didn't have my seatbelt on, and that actually saved my life. And I had a weird routine back then. I would go through that intersection, put my seatbelt on, and turn my heater on. It was a little chilly during that time. It was just I had a weird routine. And then the next intersection, and I used to smoke cigarettes. I'd light a cigarette every morning. It was my same routine. So luckily, me not having my seatbelt on saved my life, because my head probably would have literally came off. When
Come
I
off,
broke
yeah.
when I broke my neck, so I'm sitting in my chair right now. My head was in my lap, hanging. Um, the C2 literally just severed. So my airway was pinched. I was suffocating to death, was paralyzed from the neck down. So wasn't breathing. So a lot happened in there. That's a really long story. I don't want to take up everybody's time with that, but essentially died, saw everything. Grandpa was with me. Was in a really beautiful place then too. So it was a lot. It was a pretty traumatic experience for sure.
And talk to me, like, in terms of recovery from that day, fast forward, are we talking? I'm going into this kind of blind in terms of recovery length. Are we talking a year down the line, 18 months down the line, 2 years down the line, that you were able to, obviously, be able to walk again, and even the sheer thought of being able to lift weights again, go back to work again, just carrying on a normal life again. How long was that? What was recovery like for you?
So I was very lucky. When they got me to the hospital, they put me in a traction bed where they're literally pulling my head away from my body. They hung weights, like they drilled holes in my head, and I had this like horseshoe thing, and then weights pulling. Um, when they got my C2 to shift, it released the pressure on my spinal cord, and I was able to start moving. I started moving my hands first, then my legs and everything. So at that point, they're like, all right, well, he's going to be able to walk, but he's still going to have nerve damage. He's going to have a lot of issues. So the doctors were telling me probably never work again. I grew up on a farm. I'm pretty stubborn. I was a pretty strong guy then too, even though I didn't lift or anything, just naturally a strong man. Um, Actually, 5 months to the day of my wreck, I was back in a D6 dozer, back to work.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So September 1st, 2011, I was back to work. Physically, very soft. I got a little chubby. When I got in my wreck, I think if I remember right, I was like 200 and some pounds. I think when I came home 22 days later, I was down to 160 or something like that. You could wrap your hands around my thighs and touch your fingers, just everything went away. And I sat in a chair for about 3 months before I really got walking again. I had to learn to walk and get moving again. So it took 3 months, started walking around my farm. I tore my MCL too. Started moving. Next thing I know, I walked down to the neighbor's house who saved my life. That's a whole nother story. And just slowly plugging away and went through therapy, a lot of therapy. And whenever I was able to do 20 push-ups, my therapist let me go back to work because physically I was healed, but not, I have 6 screws and 2 rods. They put cadaver bones in my neck. So my surgeon was fine with me physically. Like as long as I didn't get hit hard, I'd be fine. But like strength wise, physically, I was nothing. Yeah.
This is so I was just sorry, I was just scrolling back whilst listening to you there at some of the pictures that you sent me. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the pictures of your neck literally being held together by what's that, 6 screws?
Yeah. So the top 2 are through C1, and then
Yeah,
that bigger vertebrae, that's C2. You can see it's
yeah.
even still out a little bit. And then they put rods in 3 and 4. Do you have the picture of my break? Show that one because that one's amazing.
I don't know. I've
Yeah,
got, yeah,
right
there we
there.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that was my break, and that picture of my jaw is going to our left. And
just
again,
it.
yep. So they call that a hangman's. When you put the rope around your neck, your head snaps, that C2 severs, and your head essentially falls off.
Just falls down. That's amazing.
But so yeah,
Um,
I started moving around a little bit. Even when I got back to work, I didn't work out yet. It was mentally, I was still lost, broken mentally. It was probably about a year. And I'll never forget my one friend invited me to do a 5K, and I hadn't done anything. And I hate running. I played a lot of sports in high school, but I hate running. And he talked me into it. It took me over an hour to run 3.2 miles, and it was embarrassing. And that was the thing that kind of got me moving again to finally start working out. And even then, I didn't go real hard. It's probably been like 9 years now that I've actually got back to being fit, being strong. So it was years of there of just mentally broken, afraid to hurt myself, thinking I had limitations. And finally, one day I got out of my own way. I did a Tough Mudder. I've done multiple half marathons. I've done 3 ultra marathon, 31-mile runs. Um, just something clicked. And I don't remember the day. I don't remember the scenario that made me realize like I got to quit being a little bitch. No offense, but because someone out there has it way worse than me. I'm walking. I'm not supposed to be. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to probably be dead, and I'm fine, other than a little pain. But we all have pain. We all have shoulder pain or hip pain or whatever. And just something changed where I'm like, quit being a baby and let's go.
I think it's a real inspirational story, to be honest with you. Like I say, I've been a coach for 20 years and I've worked with people who've suffered with a multitude, nowhere near. But I was on a call yesterday with somebody who's going through some treatment right now, and I always remember being in a gym with a client of mine, female client of mine, who had stage 3 leukemia, and she was coming into the gym, all her hair had fallen out, she was white as a ghost, big black eyes, really, really at death's door, circling the drain. And she used to, I get emotional thinking about it, and she'd come into the gym and be like, "You inspire me so much," and I think your story should inspire so many people because so many people give up and just sit at a desk and just get old and get overweight. And we're talking people in their 30s and 40s. So I think the fact that you've gone from that to now, today, to the state of well-being that you're in, just to give a little bit of, background on Brandon, I think since we've been working together, you're 100% compliant week after week after week after week. There's never a time where I need to check in that I think, oh, you've missed this or you've skipped out on that, or you're messaging me saying, hey, I'm doing a 6 session this week, or I've just completed my 6 mile run. So from going from that position to that over a relatively short space of time, I think is, people need to take their hats off to you, to be honest with you. Andrew, David, do you have any questions that you want to dive in with?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of over the last couple of years, Brandon, I know obviously we had the chat maybe 6 months ago now. What's been some of the behaviors, the character traits, the thought processes that have helped you be so consistent? Like a lot of people listening, aren't going to be as consistent. So what sort of things have helped you, kind of get out your own way, stop making excuses, and find a way to really have that relentless level of consistency? What kind of helps you in a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? Because I know you have a really busy role. There's a bit of travel in there as well and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about what helps you stay consistent.
A lot of it is listening to podcasts. You
Yeah.
know, Joe Rogan's kind of one of the main ones I started listening to. And when you hear him talk to like a Jocko, a David Goggins,
Yeah.
Courtney DeWalter, who's a monster running ultra marathons, listening to people like that are just athletes that we'll never be. We're just not going to get there. But also when they have bad days and they talk about, and Rogan, I think how he puts it is conquering his inner bitch.
Yeah.
And we have that a lot. And it's
He's got some demons, old Rogan, I think.
yeah.
In a way.
But just hearing other people's stories. And for me, when I see someone, you mentioned the lady with stage 4 cancer. That's for me, I have a cheat code now. I know I die. I know I'm vulnerable. And I also know I'm not that important in the big picture. When we go away, we're just kind of gone, and your family misses you and all that. I've realized like I don't need to worry about these little details anymore and stop making excuses, because there's people that just have it way worse than I do. And I'm not a victim. I got hurt. Cool. Someone else got hurt and didn't get to get out of the chair, or they died that day. So again, it's probably not fair to compare because of what I've been through. And for
Yeah.
other people, I would rather them not go through that. I have about 100 employees, 120. I talk about my wreck all the time, and I try to tell them, let me be the example. I don't want you to go through this crap to get to where I am mentally. And I'm still not perfect. There's days I don't want to do the workout, but I've learned when you feel that way, that's the time you need to go make yourself do it. And even if it isn't a great workout, it's still, at least you did it. You went at it, you tried
100%.
your best.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it is literally stealing from other people.
Yeah.
Andrew, it's talking to you guys. What I love about your guys' program, I'm task driven. I struggle, I get bored. Me and James, that's our main thing, is I get bored when I go to the gym, where I'll walk around, I look in there and I'm like, well, I don't know what to do today, and I just leave.
Yeah.
You guys give me, it's like a checklist, and I
Yeah.
need that in my life. I need
You have, Brandon, I think you must have the most insane home gym setup in the world as well. Brandon can open a gym in his backyard.
That's
It is, it's,
I, I think what you said in there is really important, though, Brandon. I mean, ultimately, people hearing that perspective, I think is helpful, because I kind of think the same way. I mean, obviously, I haven't been through the traumatic experience like yourself, but for me, a lot of the times, I try to think of people in worse situations, or I'm having a tough day, I'm having a tough week in our business. Yeah, we lost someone put in the resignation. We've got to deal with that. Things like that. Like those are, we view them as real problems, but ultimately we're lucky to view that as a problem.
Yeah.
So I think that perspective is so valuable. I really do. And that's ultimately what you said. It's like learning from other people. There's probably people can learn something from what you just said as well, I would imagine.
Well, even to, you take what I went through with my accident. So to kind of relate it to my world, we're in the trucking industry and oil and gas, dangerous job. And we talk about complacency all the time.
Yeah.
And even after me going through that wreck, there are days where I'll catch myself not paying attention when I'm driving, looking at my phone like an idiot. Even though I went through all that stuff, still I make those mistakes. So I think being aware of that kind of blind spot we all have, it's same as eating, working out. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it. It's not like I'm some perfect person. It's quite the opposite. I'm very flawed,
Yeah.
and I'm aware of it. So the working out is just one of those that try to stick with it. When I went to Vegas, James checked out the hotel to see what they had gym wise. And it was awesome. I honestly didn't think I was even going to do it. And me and my wife went down every day together. You know, again, that's to go back to you guys, having people around to talk to,
Yeah.
having that structure, changing the workout so it's not boring. I think that's key for all of us. You know, repetitiveness, we get bored with it. Next thing you know, you're just not doing it anymore.
I think we all need to be reminded more than we need to be taught.
Yeah.
Especially with things like nutrition, working out, like you're driving as well. Like we all get complacent in every area. Let's kind of talk about maybe what's kind of made Brandon successful in the program. You know, what does the nutrition, the exercise, like how do we thread that in? What does that look like in terms of? And again, James, I'll allow you to speak on that. Like what's been some of the successes you guys have seen?
I think, I mean, I've probably mentioned to the guys from the hype for our team, sorry, behind the scenes about your diet being, so Brandon is a carnivore. And yeah, I mean, I find that fascinating. It'll be really interesting actually because David's a nutritionist, so I would love you to kind of sort of discuss that. But you know, I think you sent me like a week's worth of eating, didn't you? And it was, what was it? New York strip, beef burger patties, steak, chicken breast, you know, and it was consistently that every day. And I was tracking Brandon's macros for a week, and it was never really anything over around 2,000 calories a day, but it was always, you know, 170, 199, 215 grams of protein. So anybody struggling with their protein intake needs to follow this man's guidance, I think. Because talk to us a little bit about that, Brandon. Say your carnivore diet.
Well, first of all, I'm not a doctor, okay? It's all, yeah, I listen to people. I think the very first time I ever heard of carnivore was, I think his name was Dr. Sean Baker on Rogan's show. And at that time I was probably 260. I'm 6'2", so I'm a pretty big guy, but I didn't feel like I was fat at all. And I don't know, it just made sense. You know, we're not meant to really eat corn. Just, you know, it's kind of a filler. And you go back to the olden days again, I don't know enough about it, but it just made sense to be a hunter and gatherer. You ate meat. And
Neanderthal, yeah.
I love meat. And when I also eat meat, I love the French fries and all the beer that comes with it, all the stuff. And I don't know, I just decided to try it. When I went hardcore, I went 2 years where I didn't cheat other than on the weekends when I drink beer. But I ate no carbs, no vegetables for 2 years. I went from roughly 260. I think I ended up hitting like 185 and
Wow.
felt amazing.
Yeah.
Lean as fuck as well, probably.
Oh yeah. Neck pain completely not gone, but subsided. I've got some issues with my knees and elbows or shoulder. That went away. It just felt my sex drive was insane. So today I still follow it Monday through Friday, and then my weekends I do cheat. I'll eat a little bit, usually on Sunday. My wife and I go have dinner Friday, Saturday, and usually Sunday is kind of like our bike day. We hop on a bike or take our car out. So I'm sure you watch my weight. I can go from 205 and then I'll be 215 come Monday morning and go right back to carnivore, and I'll drop right back down. I feel great. So, you know, I really like it. I think it works well. I had an older friend. He was 65 when he did it. He did it for 2 months. He lost 27 pounds, got off of some blood medication. Myself, I used to be on Synthroid after my wreck. Apparently I had a thyroid issue. You know, my doctor put me on Synthroid. And when I was eating really clean and feeling good, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go off of this. And I never told my doctor what I did either, because I didn't want to. I figured he would be like, you're crazy. You're just eating meat. That's it. Your cholesterol is going to go through the roof. You're going to have a heart attack, whatever. So I never told him. And the last time we took blood, I had not taken Synthroid for probably 8 months. And I finally told him, you know, I go, I'm 185 pounds. Blood looks great. He goes, your Synthroid, we don't need to change it. The dose is perfect. I go, well, it's funny you say that. I'm not even on it anymore. So I believe eating, and it's not for everybody. I know that. I'm not a dummy, you know, where some people are better vegetarian or whatever. But for my makeup, when I eat the way I do, I feel amazing. I really do.
I think
David,
the
what Sorry,
important
go on,
thing,
Andrew.
I think the important thing you mentioned in there, Brandon, is it works for you and you were able to do it for 2 years. And you're able to still do it to some extent today. You know, Monday through Friday, it's a bit more regimented. There's maybe a bit more flexibility in the weekends, but it allows you to sustain your weight, sustain your level of health, sustain your body composition. And, you know, you could have got to 195 a number of ways, but ultimately you found the one that works for you. And I think that's the most important part. Yes, there's arguments for and against certain diet methods, but realistically, I think the most important part, or all of one of the most important part, is, are you metabolically healthy, and maintaining your weight, having good blood work, things like that. Those are huge factors in that. So yeah, I think that makes sense for you. Sorry, James, I cut you off there. Apologies.
I was going to say, David, what is your kind of feelings towards an all meat diet from a nutritionist perspective?
We're looking at it from the other way round. The Western diet, it's on paper, it's the perfect diet, but there's so many also things can go wrong. And I think certain people have a lot of sort of an inflammatory response to certain foods. And the fact is that if you are one of them people, which is a large percent of the population, if you eat too much of the wrong foods, it's not going to work for you, which makes sense to as to why some people who go on a sort of a higher protein diet, low carb, they suddenly feel just regenerated. You know, it's a complete different feeling to their bodies. Doesn't always work for everyone. So that's where that personalization comes in. But also putting into Brandon's position as well, the neurological side and certain foods that can help him with his recovery. I mean, lean proteins is really good for B vitamins, so it's going to help with that regeneration of nerves as well. So there's a lot of things maybe going on there as well that was helping as well. So yeah, it can definitely work. And there's a lot of athletes even that should be taking a lot of carbohydrate that take low carbohydrate, but they've got themselves fat adapted to a point where they can just live off of that. And that's the beauty of it. It's kind of finding your sweet spot. I don't think there is a perfect diet for everyone. Everyone's genetically different. Everyone's got their own different foods that they're going to have intolerances to and allergies. So we just need to listen to our bodies. And I think that's the number one thing to take from it is listen to you, because you know you more than anyone else. And don't always go by the textbook, because that's just a guideline rather than what actually is going on in your body.
I think I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan. I know he's either, you either love him or hate him. He's a bit Marmite, isn't he? But his daughter Michaela, I think she's probably one of the most well-known carnivores out there. I mean, she eats 3 strip loin steaks a day. I was listening to one of her podcasts the other day, maybe with a little bit. So I think she drinks vodka maybe as well. But she had a plethora of lifelong illnesses, didn't she? That within like a year of doing this, and I think Jordan Peterson, he then jumped on it as well, didn't he? And exactly the same. It cleared up just a list as long as your arm of health conditions. I know, Andrew, that you have to jump off, so I was going to bring the podcast to a close. If there's anything, Andrew or David, you wanted to ask Brandon before we finish, maybe we've got time for one more question.
Yeah, apologies. I need to shoot to an airport here. I'm heading on a plane to Dubai. Yeah, I mean, in terms of yourself, Brandon, I mean, what would you say, just as a sort of final point? What would you say is kind of one of the things for maybe people executing the program who are listening, that you find to be helpful? Your relationship with James, your communication methods. I mean, like anything that's helped you be successful within the context of this, and someone listening could then apply in the same scenario as well. Because it's not too often we've actually spoken to people like yourself who are on the program. I think this is only the second time we've done this. So to get your perspective on maybe what's made it successful for you or some of the highlights, I think that would be a great just finishing point if you don't mind sharing.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Brandon.
And again, I just can't reiterate how the structuredness of your program, I love it. I wake up, I look at it. I know one thing that helps me, and James kind of got this, and I think I emailed you, Andrew, is if you feel like you're on your own for a minute, reach out. You guys have lives. Because when I looked at this, when I signed up, I know I give every single one of my employees has my phone number, and I answer all the time. Sorry about that. I answer all the time. If I can't, I'm getting back to you. That's how I got to where I am. That's why I'm successful. I can't spell tomorrow, but I can answer my phone.
Yeah.
Just reach out if you guys feel like you're floundering around by yourself and your trainer's not there. Reach out. You know, James was sick. I didn't know it, and he wasn't responding back. So I reached out to Andrew, and Andrew responded immediately. And then I found out what was going on. If I don't ask those questions and I just feel like James left me out on my own, I never know that he's sick.
I'll never leave you.
Yeah.
I'll never leave you out.
I love honesty. I love uncomfortable conversations. You know, if it's just my favorite thing, and so far I've had that with you guys. You know, if I don't like part of my training, I tell them. If I want it, I've got shoulder issues, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's from my wreck or what, but he built a whole program around helping strengthen my shoulders up. You know, there's multiple, David, you know, I'd love to talk to you sometime about diet, because I don't know anything about it. I don't use that part of your guys' program because I'm kind of a bullheaded about this carnivore stuff. I like it. But just reach out. Don't sit there on your hands and speak up. You know, don't let that be the excuse.
Yeah.
I'd rather put you guys in an uncomfortable position to respond.
Sounds good.
Of
Well,
course.
communication is the key, and we see that across the board.
100%.
Brandon, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you hopping on. Sorry. I hope anyone listening who's on the program got something they could implement out of this today. You've got an incredible story, Brandon. Again, it's been a pleasure having you here today and in our chats as well across the course. So really enjoyed it, and I can't thank you enough for your time today as well. And thanks to you guys as well, James and David.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Safe travels.
Great weekend. Cheers, guys.
Take care.